Hello, class! Coming to you live from the bottom of the ocean is your reporter and editorial writer, Perry Barr, in action! Pew, pew, pew! I'm here to tell you all about House Bill number 1353. Don't mind the fish. If passed, this bill would allow any qualified voter in the state of Virginia to cast an absentee ballot without providing a reason for why he or she is unable to vote in person. Currently, there are about 11 excused reasons for why someone would need to fill out an absentee ballot. However, none of those reasons cover people who simply do not have the time or can't afford to take time off in order to vote. This seems very unjust due to the fact that it seems to suggest that some voters are more important than others. It also basically says, oh, you're working and can't lose 3 hours worth of wages to stand in line and vote? Tough luck, Chuck. Your voice will not be heard. If these qualifications for absentee voting were removed, what would be the worst thing that could happen? Someone would fill out an absentee form out of laziness? So what? The point of an election is to have voices heard. That person probably wouldn't have voted at all if the absentee ballot hadn't been an option. So I have written a letter to the editor of the Richmond Times-Dispatch urging readers to consider my position on why the passage of House Bill 1353 would be beneficial to everyone. Dear Editor, this letter represents a vote in favor of the passage of Virginia House Bill number 1353, which concerns the qualifications for casting an absentee ballot. The passage of this bill would allow any qualified voter to personally use and turn in an absentee form without providing a reason for why they were unable to vote on Election Day. In 2010, only 38.6% of Virginia residents of voting age actually made use of their right to vote. Virginia ranked 39th in the nation, below the national average of the citizen voting age population who actually voted. How much higher might this percentage be if the qualifications for voting via absentee ballot became more inclusive? The current laws regarding absentee qualifications require that any person may vote absentee if they will be out of their voting jurisdiction on Election Day due to work or vacation leave. Other qualifications for casting an absentee ballot include being an active member of military service who is deployed, a student who is absentee from his or her voting jurisdiction, that would be me, any person with a disability, illness, or pregnancy that prevents attendance, any designated representative or candidate of a political party, anyone who must care for a disabled or ill relative, or a person with a conflicting religious duty that coincides with the voting day. While this may seem to be an accommodating list, I would like to pose the possibility that we are still limiting the number of people who vote. As a democratic society, we as Americans pride ourselves on our ability to cast our votes and make our voices heard in politics. In having certain limitations on who may cast an absentee ballot, I feel that we are limiting the number of people who are able to vote. The overall goal should be to allow as many people as possible to cast their votes. In my opinion, by requiring that certain qualifications be met in casting an absentee ballot, we are suggesting that people are too lazy to go to the polls and would rather make them an excuse to cast their ballot from home. My question to you is then this: why does it matter? If the ultimate goal is to raise the number of people who vote, then what difference does it make if people vote from home or not? This then becomes an issue of social justice. Are we simply trying to silence the voices of people who may not necessarily have any impairment but would face extreme difficulty reaching the polls? Until Election Day is determined to be a national holiday in which all are excused from work for the day in order to vote, absentee ballot limitations are discriminatory. For example, take the scenario of a single working mother who barely makes ends meet, but desperately wants to make her voice heard. Her desire to vote is big, but her desire to not lose between 2 and 3 hours of pay in order to stand in line to vote is bigger. Feeding her child takes priority, and rightfully so. However, the question that I would like to present is, why should she have to choose? Why not allow for her to fill out an absentee ballot so that she is not denied the chance to vote? Or as another example, consider the elderly gentleman who is not considered by the government to have any disability, but would still face a considerable risk in attempting to reach the polls. Social justice refers to the fair treatment of all humans, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, etc. In limiting the different ways in which people can make their voices heard, we are failing to adhere to the just society that we claim to advocate in favor of. The question then becomes about how much harm could result in freeing absentee ballots from prior qualifications. Is it a concern that no one will come to the polls to vote and the tallying process will take longer? This hardly seems like a qualifying concern, as absentee ballots can be mailed in ahead of time, giving election officials ample time to account for these ballots. A requirement could be made that absentee ballots be postmarked by a certain date, so as not to delay the election process. The mechanics of this can, of course, be handled more succinctly in greater time. However, the time to make this change is now. The next presidential election is some time away. While other elections will occur before that time, beginning the process of altering the absentee ballot system now will ultimately result in the best outcome for everyone. Stop the injustice that is being perpetrated against fellow American citizens by voting in favor of Virginia House Bill number 1353. Sincerely, Perry Barr. Underwater.